Greetings, you secret romantics. I'm Amazzon Kane with an extra Z for pizzazz. Since February is the month of romance, and most of you out there are probably watching the same 5 shows over and over again, let's third wheel some fictional relationships. In this case, bromance. Bromance, or close non-sexual male relationship, is a term that became popular in the early 2000s when it was getting more acceptable in American pop culture for 2 men to be more affectionate towards their friends. However, a lot of the times, under the guise of bromance, there tends to be a homoeroticism that comes with that. A lot of times this is ironic and played for laughs in order to show that the relationship is indeed platonic, or to get a rise out of the characters. Other times you question what was going on behind the scenes and what the intention was, but we'll get to that when we get to that. It does seem to be a trend about how male relationships, particularly the more homoerotic ones, have been getting more spotlight lately among a female audience. It's similar to how lesbians in media are put under the spotlight for a male audience. But you can't deny that, especially with a bromance, there is a relationship that's all its own. It's unique and varied. A lot of these bromances are some of the best friendships you can see on screen, but other times there is a lot more of a romantic subtext depending on the story. What's the difference? That's what opinions are for. So spoilers ahead, fair warning. If you don't want any of these shows to be spoiled for you, please turn off the video at any point. So this is going to be a spectrum list ranked from literally brothers at number 10 to oh my god, just get married already at number 1. With that said, here are the top 10, mostly television, bromances.
And explain our guy love, that's all it is.
Number 10.
He's mine, I'm his.
Drake and Josh. From Drake and Josh. Why not start this list off with the most literal of bromances? Drake is a popular musician who doesn't take life too seriously, and Josh is a nerdy eccentric. Drake's mom married Josh's dad, and we end up with a high school version of The Odd Couple. Drake Parker and Josh Nichols will fight but quickly forgive each other. They'll have inside jokes and catchphrases. They'll do horrible things to each other, but are also quick to defend each other when it counts. Heck, they've even kissed a few times and don't once question it, because they're family. The chemistry between Drake and Josh feels so natural that you believe these two actually grew up together, which they did. Actors Drake Bell and Josh Peck were often partnered together for various sketches on The Amanda Show, so they came into this with their characters already knowing how to work off one another. All of that is more than enough to count Drake and Josh as the number 10 spot on the bromance countdown.
Help me, brother! And explain our guy love, that's
Number
all
9.
it is.
Phil and Lem from Better Off Ted.
All right, I'm not going to sit through another dog and pony show, so which one of you is going to speak, dog or pony?
Well, Phil and I were hoping...
Pony it is.
Office life in a morally grey innovation company like Viridian Dynamics would be completely bleak without the bromance of Phil and Lem. Both of them are brilliant, but spineless, as they navigate how to make the latest, greatest, potentially lethal invention. These two act like a traditional married couple. Get used to that phrase, you're going to be hearing that a lot. They constantly bicker, yet they can't function without the other one. Though outside of their codependency, bickering, and dying to constantly impress their boss Ted, their actual dynamic is a lot more like partners in crime. They show more romantic and sexual interest in women, although being terrible at dealing with them, and Phil being married. When one of them is vulnerable, the other one, though equally spineless, will quickly take charge. It's funny because nobody cracks any jokes about them possibly being in love, but instead at their awkwardness or their team dynamic. And even if they did hear jokes about being in a relationship, Phil and Lem are the type of friends who are so comfortable with that they'd be fine. With a bond so strong that not even their boss can separate them, Phil and Lem are the heart in a heartless company.
This is not a good look for us.
Maybe it'll look less weird if I carry you. Nope.
And explain our guy love,
Number 8.
all it is.
Troy and Abed from Community. Even in a purgatory like Greendale Community College, where our main cast ends up because of the choices they made in life, hope is found for both Troy and Abed through their amazing friendship. These two have found a strong connection through both their strengths and their flaws, and despite being in terrible situations at the start of the show. Troy is a lot more sensitive and outgoing, while Abed has an extensive knowledge of television shows and uses that as his world filter. Other than that, these two are pretty much one person. They're both giant children, they both have imaginations, and together, their imaginations are unstoppable, which leads to some of the most fun anyone can have while they're stuck in school. They'll create Spanish raps to help them study, or they'll devote an entire room in their apartment to pure imagination. Even when they're fighting, which happens with all friendships, they think so similarly that it results in a giant project that takes over the entire school. Greendale is their playground, and they'll enjoy it until the end of time. Or until Troy leaves the show.
And explain our dialogue.
Number 7. Ryan Stiles and Drew Carey, and Ryan Stiles and Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway? I'm not sure which of these bromances is stronger, so I decided to put them both on the list. Ryan and Drew's bromance is so strong that it extends across 2 shows, Whose Line Is It Anyway and The Drew Carey Show. Both of them have producing power behind the scenes, with Drew being the guy in charge on screen, but with Ryan being able to get away at an extra jab at either Drew or the censors. Ryan is the only one who can get away with taking these extra jabs, usually through song, but then he'll quickly turn around and make a joke about them getting it on.
Is it because Drew and I are lovers?
Hey. 500 points to Ryan for giving the censor something to think about.
Ryan and Colin's bromance is so strong that it extended to several versions of Whose Line, proving that this duo can't be stopped. They act more like a married couple, usually with Colin taking on the role of the woman.
That's when he did something totally unexpected. Something so crazy and wild it took me totally by surprise. Even though it was kind of funny, it still was really weird.
When one of the other team members takes a jab at them, usually making fun of Ryan's nose or Colin's baldness, the other's quickly there to defend them. Heck, you know, with 2 bromances that go beyond the show, I'm going to unofficially elect Ryan Stiles as the king of bromance. How does that feel, Ryan Stiles?
I feel powerful.
And explain our dialogue.
Number 6.
That's all it is.
Sherlock and Watson from BBC's Sherlock. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, putting them at the bottom half of the list, but in all honesty, I don't see Sherlock and Watson as a couple. There's definitely a homoeroticism to the show, and the idea that Sherlock and Watson may be gay, lovers, or both is definitely not unique to this show. The idea existed for decades before this version came along, and built on it. The other reason is that, while there is a lot of innuendo and the typical married couple bickering, it's all done ironically. Though this idea is encouraged by Tumblr and many fans, and it's been around for so long, in this version of the show, Sherlock's true love is a mental challenge and Watson's is danger. Both of them address this many times in the show. This interpretation of Sherlock Holmes makes fun of a lot of the ideas that previous versions, and there are a lot of them, added to the lore, and that's no exception. The overall relationship in this show is a very strong one. Holmes and Watson throw themselves repeatedly into danger trying to protect the other. They care about each other first and foremost as people, and have a lot of the same interests that so few people would understand or be willing to take such a big risk for. It's another way of saying there's someone for everyone. Whether that someone is a close friend or a significant other in this case is up for debate. Me personally, I see this as more of a friendship.
Listen to me. I am not gay.
And explain our dialogue.
Number 5.
That's all it is.
SpongeBob and Patrick from SpongeBob SquarePants. This entry is based on earlier seasons of the show, so if something's changed, I probably missed it, and I might miss a few details. But consistently from what I know, love truly knows no bounds even under the sea. One thing that has been consistent is that SpongeBob is no stranger to love, and Patrick is right there alongside him. Patrick is one of the few characters equally as loving as SpongeBob, and willing to reciprocate. Most everyone else tends to get annoyed with these two in one way or another. In addition, almost every other character seems to be focused on something else. Squidward focuses on himself, Sandy is focused on science, Mr. Krabs is focused on money, the list goes on. But that's what makes SpongeBob and Patrick's relationship even stronger. They're so true to who they are and they're so comfortable with love that the rest of the world's resentment isn't going to stop them. They're completely comfortable enough to point out when someone of either gender is hot.
You're a hunk!
You're hot.
They have musical friendship rings, they have sleepovers, and they're also one of the few bromances on this list that raise a child together. This in particular prompted a lot of people to question if it was more than it let on, and you can see why, but you can also see that as two kids playing house. However you choose to interpret it, SpongeBob and Patrick have a love that is all their own and deeper than the deep blue sea.
It's not crazy talk. This is crazy talk.
And explain our dialogue.
Number 4. Sheriff Blubbs and Deputy Durland from Gravity Falls. Gravity Falls is home to the mystery and the supernatural, but there is nothing mysterious about this relationship. Sheriff Blubbs and Deputy Durland are two bumbling cops who spend a lot more time hitting on each other than doing their jobs. Although I get the sense that at least Sheriff Blubbs would be a decent cop if he wasn't so blinded by love. Without much crime in the local area, I'm assuming, they play a lot of games together. Whether it's a pencil maze in their cop car, or going off to witness their coworker fit an entire cantaloupe in his mouth. What makes this more romantic than bromantic are the things they say to each other in the midst of something else going on.
I think someone just sped by.
Probably just a dream.
With you, every day is a dream.
Though Durland doesn't speak as much as Blubbs does, you can always see the look on his face showing his affection. They're always so attentive to one another, which is pretty sweet, even when they're not talking or doing anything. They definitely got a lot less publicly affectionate when Season 2 came along. But when Deputy Durland is turned to stone, we see just how much Sheriff Blubbs really cares.
Merlin, my precious deputy Merlin!
And explain our dialogue. That's
Number
all
3.
it is.
Sam and Frodo from Lord of the Rings. This is the entry that requires me to say mostly TV bromances, but I really couldn't leave this one off. For the minority of people who don't know, Lord of the Rings is about a quest among several fantasy races to destroy an all-powerful ring to stop a worldwide war before a power corrupts the bearer. At the center of it is Frodo, the ring bearer, who's tasked with throwing the ring into the fires where it came from, and Sam, his trusty companion, and their relationship builds from here on out the more time they spend together. Somewhere along the way, it seems that it becomes much more than friendship. They'll gaze at each other a bit too long. Sam gets extremely protective of Frodo as he's being tempted by the ring, and Gollum, almost like a jealous boyfriend. It doesn't exactly help that the ring looks like a wedding band. Even though Sam admits he wants to marry Rosie Cotton from the Shire, she's nowhere to be seen or mentioned except at the very beginning and at the very end. When Sam mentions this, Frodo gets this very confused and crushed look in his eyes. But I'm assuming he loves Sam so much, and after everything he's been through, Frodo just wants him to be happy. It's not hard to imagine that the real reason Frodo went off to Grey Havens is because of a broken heart, although he does give Sam one final lingering kiss at the end. Think of that what you will. I think a big part of this one came from behind the scenes because between the cast members and the fanfiction practical jokes from the writers, it was one big bromance across the board. You can see several videos of them making fun of each other, kisses, headbutts, rituals. So I'm gonna say that it's because of the bromantic behind the scenes that leads to this one homoerotic final project.
Don't you leave him Samwise Gamgee. And I don't mean to. I don't mean to.
Oh, Sam.
And explain our dialogue. That's all
Number
it
2.
is.
JD and Turk from Scrubs. Oh, JD and Turk. Since this was one of the first times you really saw the two guys this close and completely comfortable with that, it practically invented the bromance. In the medical field where death is seen all the time, college friends John Dorian and Christopher Turk celebrate life like nobody else. They're polar opposites who've been going strong since their college days. JD is a nerdy, spread the love kind of guy with a constant inner monologue and a penchant for Appletinis. Turk is a tough surgeon who doesn't like to show his sensitive side, but doesn't realize he's showing it all the time. They have a partner in crime type bond half the time, but almost a romantic dynamic the other half. They'll help each other out with their love lives, but they'll be calling each other lovey-dovey nicknames. They seem to take the best bits of all the bromances so far, but acknowledge that in their own way, they are a loving married couple. Aside from the nicknames, they have friendship bracelets and, unlike any of the others so far, a completely original song devoted to their love. You know the one.
And explain our guy love, that's all it is. Guy love, he's mine, I'm his. There's nothing gay about it in our eyes.
There are times in the show where they have invasive thoughts about their own sexuality, but JD and Turk are interesting because at the end of the day, it's definitely not romantic, as some of the other couples on the list so far. But there's both an irony and a seriousness to this relationship, which makes it so interesting. They point out often that if they were attracted to men, they would definitely be a couple. And even if their jobs do end up separating them in the end, nobody can separate this connection.
I love you.
Just tell him how you feel without sounding like a girl for once.
I miss you so much it hurts sometimes.
Now you're probably wondering, what could possibly top JD and Turk, the classic bromance, who seem like they invented it? But believe it or not, there is one that is stronger. Which one? Well, let's take a look.
And explain our guy love.
And the number one bromance on this list is Merlin and Arthur from BBC's Merlin. Oh my god. Where do I begin with this one? This show has done everything but actually say they're in love. Very loosely based on Arthurian legend, Merlin and Arthur are the same age in this version. Magic is illegal in Camelot, and Merlin must hide his magic from the world while serving Prince Arthur as he becomes the great king of Camelot. Merlin himself is a sensitive young man who is different from everyone in his village. He has to hide who he is from a dangerous world and almost never gets credit for the good he does. Arthur, meanwhile, is born into a life of privilege with the responsibility of an entire kingdom on his shoulders. He tries to do the right thing, but his stubborn father raised him with a very specific mindset towards magic, so he's often conflicted and emotionally distant from everyone, except for Merlin. They do all the other things you see in all the other bromances. You know, they'll bicker like a married couple, there's a ton of innuendo and fan service. But Merlin and Arthur go far beyond that. They grow to like each other really fast, despite supposedly hating each other at first. Within just a few episodes, they're both willing to risk their lives for each other, which continues throughout the entire show. Arthur, no matter what he's doing or what quest he's on, will drop everything if Merlin's in danger. Merlin, in turn, only uses his magic so that Arthur can fulfill his destiny to become a great leader. And also to do this.
You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel.
In one episode after killing a unicorn, Arthur must prove he's pure of heart, and this is achieved after he shows he's willing to die for Merlin. Camelot is literally saved when Arthur has shown what's truly in his heart. Their relationship is described by both them and several side characters repeatedly as destiny, that they're two sides of the same coin. The Great Dragon ships it. Heck, even Merlin's mom and Arthur's dad acknowledge this. A lot of people see this as just an extremely close friendship, but Arthur often chooses Merlin over his supposed true love, Gwen, and Merlin has given way too much of his magic for Arthur's sake for this to be just a friendship. Speaking of female love interests, they're very much tossed aside. Arthur and Gwen never have any chemistry, and Merlin's never even given a love interest beyond one episode. Unlike any other bromance, this relationship is so intertwined with the plot of the story. It's like Romeo and Juliet meets Arthurian legend. But it's different from something like Sherlock for two reasons. First, none of this is done for comedy. While Merlin and Arthur's relationship has funny moments, Sherlock treats the homoeroticism more ironically. Watson will deny being a couple, Sherlock doesn't care what people think. But here there's none of that. There's one moment where Merlin thinks Arthur's going to hug him, resulting in an awkward moment, and another moment where Arthur says he's not going to share a bed with Merlin. Both of these happen later and are played 100% seriously. The second reason is that, unlike Sherlock, there's a real discomfort pointing out any romantic implications, especially from behind the scenes. If someone were to make a comment about it, it'd be quickly denied and shut down.
Merlin is about a friendship between Merlin and Arthur, which goes very deep, and they do care for each other hugely. But it's not necessarily, it isn't a gay love story, no.
This attitude is directly contradicted at the end of the series finale by showrunner Julian Murphy, who describes this episode and possibly the whole series as a love story between two men.
I want something I've never said to you before.
bromance, and it's not even just a romance. These two are soulmates. For that reason, they more than qualify for being the #1 bromance of all time. So thank you so much for watching this list. I'm Amazzon Kane, and I'm sure many of you out there will be taking to DeviantArt or fanfiction.net to third wheel some fictional relationships, and I wish you all the best with that. So whether you go out or stay in this Valentine's Day, just remember, don't do anything illegal, don't harass any actors, and be prepared for some seriously emotional endings. Yeah. If you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Twitter or Instagram, also under the name Amazzon Kane. And happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Let's face the facts about me and you. A love unspecified. Though I'm proud to call you Chocolate Bear.